All right, I think we are live here. I hope everybody can hear me. If I can't, if my mic's not working for some reason, please let me know in the chat. Welcome everybody to Loud and Clear with Glenn Schick, where we talk about audio production and mastering and the things that actually make records translate in the real world. I'm Glenn Schick, and I'm a mastering engineer with over 3 decades of work. And today we are coming to you from Reykjavik, Iceland. It is a beautiful, lovely day here. It's summertime, so we're happy about that. And it's sunny 24 hours a day now. So if you're not from that part of the world, imagine that. Anyway, today we're doing, I think, our first show on software. And, one of the things that we talked about earlier was perceived loudness and how it's not just what the meter reads. So today's episode kind of piggybacks off of that. And we're going to talk about loudness. We're going to talk about the lovely limiter from Natrl Audio, the AL-1. And to do that, I'm going to bring on a guest. His name is Andrew Rynhard, and he is from, let's see, where are you there? Let's get you up there. There you go.
Hello.
Hello, Andrew. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Andrew, tell us who you are and where you are and a little about, why you're here.
Sure. Well, my name's Andrew Rynhard. I live in Austin, Texas, by way of Santa Barbara and the Bay Area, California. I like to call myself a mastering engineer. I've also been doing software, kind of getting the opportunity now to merge those two into a single thing. So now I'm the CEO and founder of Natrl Audio, who makes the AL-1. And using the products that I'm designing, mastering music for people. It's living the life, really.
Awesome, man. So today we're going to talk about specifically one product, and that's your limiter, which is called the AL-1. And the limiter seems to have gotten a little bit of a buzz about it, and I happen to use it among others in my arsenal, but it's definitely one of my most reached for limiters in my arsenal. And it's got some unique stuff, which we'll talk about today. So let's just start from the beginning. What were the problems that you were trying to solve that existing limiters weren't doing for you?
Yeah, so I think this was very much a personal journey. I couldn't quite put my finger on what the existing limiters weren't doing and that I wanted. And in doing more and more listening and research, I started to realize that this idea of turning down everything leading up to a transient has much more of an effect than we imagine. There's actually research and paperwork on this that you can look up. The difference between the actual onset, the physical onset of a transient versus the perceived onset of the transient. And it just made a lot of sense to me that this idea of trying to avoid blunting everything leading up to this moment of a peak could reap really big benefits of preserving kind of what is there. Because a transient, it's not just this single sample that goes over 0 dB. It's not that thing that's at the lobe, the very tip. It is a collection that you need to treat holistically.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt just kind of intuitively that look ahead limiting had real problems in that regard. So I just went on a journey to try and figure out how we could address that. And that's really where it all started.
So when you were kind of coming up with this, was it like loudness or transparency or the transient behavior or workflow? What was the kind of leading
It's everything,
edge?
right?
Everything.
Yeah. On the musical side, who doesn't want it all? I
Course.
want loudness. I understand, as a mastering engineer, there's different trade-offs. As you go louder, you're going to get less dynamics. These are just there's compromises and sacrifices that have to be made. Either way you cut it. But can I squeeze out an extra 2 dBu on a VU meter while retaining crest, while retaining transient feel. You know, it's just I'm just it's kind of like pro athletes, right? Where they get all excited about being zero point 0.1 millisecond like
Right.
faster than the other one. And even in the world of fighting, I'm a big fan of MMA and boxing and all that. It's you're talking about 1%, half a percent differences. And to me, I just felt like I wanted more of everything that I was after, more loudness, but also, can we get loud, but also still make it feel dynamic? Can we have both? So it was really, the answer is I want it all.
So when I agree with you as a mastering engineer and a fellow mastering engineer, I know we're that 1% made a huge difference in your
Yeah.
overall master. And honestly, sometimes even just getting that 1% is enough, just all by itself.
Yep.
So when you started, working on this, would you say that your approach was that it was closer to like a regular brick wall limiter or clipper or something like a
Yeah.
hybrid?
That's a good question. I also had the idea that brick wall was something that I wanted to avoid as well, because the concept felt artificial to me. We're basically not allowing. We're basically creating an algorithm so that this thing literally cannot have a natural feel to it. It's designed such that we'll never hit over this, and no matter what, we're never going to go over it. So the AL-1's design is to get very, very, very close to what a brick wall is doing in practice, which is trying to maintain a ceiling. But can we allow natural variations of 0.02, 0.01? And my whole philosophy is that this is where the magic of music is. It's in these imperfections, and it's in these things that are a bit unpredictable, and they aren't so rigid in rules. So I was trying to find this balance of this digital hard brick wall look ahead thing and this world where, can I create a limiter that's fast enough to catch these naturally and in a just less of a heuristics way, but more of a just like something that falls out of the design itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And
So
there's a lot of what drew me to my ear to that limiter specifically, because when you guys got in touch with me and said, you want to try a new limiter, and I was just like, I got 50 limiters. What I need another limiter like a hole in my head right now.
yeah,
But I did try it, and the thing that caught me was kind of just the natural character of the transients, and how it didn't feel like it was kind of a top-down hammer, like a lot of limiters can feel. And I was kind of surprised because I really wasn't expecting that at all, and it was really refreshing actually for a change.
I think it's jarring for a lot of people. The feedback that I get consistently is, at first I didn't like it because it felt so different to me. It wasn't familiar. I think most humans are creatures of habit and finding their comfortable space, where this one really challenges you to think a little bit differently about how limiting should feel. And yeah, there are plenty of people who have had that same exact experience, and they come around later and they're like, okay, I see where you're going with this. It has its downfalls. I'll be the first one to admit that, but we can get into that when the time is right.
Tell us what sucks about your limiter. No,
I'm not
um,
opposed to that, right?
yeah.
I'm actually a fan of anti-marketing as marketing. Like, just, we're all engineers and we're all people at the end of the day. I'm not
Yeah.
going to hype it up.
This is an anti polished live stream, so this is the perfect place for
Perfect.
it. So, before we talk about the foibles, let's just kind of go through a little bit here. So, when you were designing this thing, was it more about like transparency or coloration? Was there a creative
Transparency,
choice? Okay, so
100%.
you're going
That's
for natural, not coloration.
Yes, yep. Natural is the right word, because I got I got tired of this word transparency. It was just so overplayed, and it was so. And I know this sounds like we're just for the sake of marketing, trying to replace the word. But I was after something that felt honest and natural. That's why it's called natural audio. I'm a big fan of something that feels organic and natural. That's just the sound that I like.
Mhm.
And so I was going after what I would call a step beyond transparency. I want it to feel honest. I want it to feel like, this is why I almost intentionally designed it to distort in certain places, because in my opinion, a lot of designs try to do absolutely everything they can to not distort, even at the sacrifice of transience and width and depth. And to me, that is a form of distortion in and of itself, right?
Sure.
It's just not total harm. It's not harmonic distortion. It's now we're changing how the transients feel. We're changing how the depth feels and the width feels. So I was going after something that was trying to capture the original intent as much as possible, but not from the traditional total harmonic distortion transparency point of view, but from the musical feel point of view, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'd read something that they said that the AL-1 treats stuff as a suggestion rather than a setting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's 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 this balance of kind of the algorithm that I've come up with and allowing the user to influence where that algorithm kind of lives. That's the whole idea behind the AL-1. The A originally standed for adaptive, but other people have come along. It's alpha now, and other people have said it's this now, and we don't know what the hell it stands for anymore. But that was the original one. And of course, the word adaptive is also highly overplayed here. But the idea was you can kind of have this program dependent thing going on, but you as a user can influence that, right? You get a lot of things
Right.
that are quote unquote program dependent, but you don't really get to influence how they choose to be program dependent. So a lot of these controls really are just influencing some of the design philosophy going on in there, rather than very strict mechanical things like attack and release, for example. It's more of a suggestion rather than a hard 34 millisecond thing. It's just, if you can reach this, I want you to try to, It's more of a
Right.
suggestion rather than a hard
So
34
I
millisecond
just
thing.
put the AL-1 up on the screen here. Can you see this as well?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. So I just put the underneath the hood on this thing, since you're the designer, was there any like really surprising thing that an engineer would say, "Oh wow, that's really interesting the way they designed that"? Like, I know you mentioned some modeling earlier and some other stuff, but is your design philosophy something that your average audio engineer would go, "That's different"?
Yes, there is a lot under here that is very different. One of them where we decided not to talk out loud about because we feel that it is our proprietary approach. I have a feeling it's going to come out eventually because I'm very much an open book. I'm a big open source software fan. In fact, that's my background. That's how I learned to program. So eventually it'll probably come out, but I can talk about some things. I will hint at it. It's the approach to look ahead limiting, really. We're not. I think look ahead limiting in and of itself is not necessarily the problem. It's the way in which we apply things within that delay line, as we call it. We're taking gain reduction and we're applying it smoothly up until the point of this peak. And I think that there's other ways that we could distribute that work that helps preserve everything around this perceived onset, right?
Mhm.
So if someone were to look at the code today and be like, "Oh, you're doing this type of thing," they would be like, "That's not look ahead limiting, but it looks like it, but it's not, and that's really strange." But it's what we're doing. The second thing I would say is our linking. I don't know of anyone doing linking the way that we're doing linking.
Definitely, let's talk about that a little, because that was like a really kind of a light bulb moment for me when I started using the limiter. And so talk about the stereo link innovation here.
Yes. So it helps to have a little bit of context here for people who may not know, but traditional linking is essentially you have a left channel and a right channel. Which one is doing more gain reduction? That one takes priority. And if you're 100% linked, the other channel will get that same amount of gain reduction. that is linked 100%. If they're 50% linked, then you'll split the difference between the two and you'll apply only 50% of that gain reduction, right? On the one that doesn't need as much. And it's pretty naive. And we see this on the API 2500 where you can say, oh, 25%, 50% and all these things. The way in which that has always kind of irked me is no matter what, it just seems to suck the life out of the sides. I really loved what the linking did to the center channel. It tightens things up, it makes things pop, it adds a little bit of dimension and depth, but at the sacrifice of making the sides feel sagged down and clamped down when something really hard hits, like an 808 or something like that. So the idea behind the linking within the AL-1 is, well, why don't we try to figure out how to make it dynamic? And what's the best way that you can think about, center channel and side channel that's dynamic? It's correlation. It's how correlated are the left and right signals. And so the way in which we do it is it's all relative to how correlated the signal is currently. And so what this threshold knob is doing, it's saying when you are around this range of correlation, right now we're at 0.8, when correlation is somewhere around 0.8, linking starts to engage.
Gotcha.
And it goes from minimum to maximum. And so it's not this statically linked 25% all the time, no matter what. It breathes with the music. As the music becomes more focused and centered because it's more correlated, the linking becomes stronger. And so it snaps only those things that really matter to be snapped into place. And then as that kind of breathes and lets go, the sides can then do their thing because now it's starting to unlink. And then you can set a range of how tight you want that to be and the range in which it can go. And then, of course, we added more knobs like what's the curve in which you can go through, travel from minimum to maximum, and is it fast or is it slow? But really, it's just all boiling down to this idea of correlation-based stereo linking.
Yeah, it's a really useful, and I didn't realize how much it was going to help a master till I still kind of got into it and played with it a little bit, and that was another little kind of revelation that came through. So,
yeah,
nice job on that.
Thank you.
Our listeners are saying that when I'm putting up my Wavelab with the plugin, that we're getting a little delay. So I'm going to just pop it on to show some features and then take it back off, just so you know. So let's talk a little bit about the next thing, which is another feature here. Let's put this up for a second. And that's the window slider here. Let's talk about that feature. And I'm going to pull this back off so it doesn't echo.
Cool. Yeah, so this one is, it's really harder for people to grasp at times. And in hindsight, I should have actually flipped the window because the AL-1 does get critics saying that it distorts, and they're not wrong. You could design a limiter so that it never distorts. And I wanted to give people the choice of not necessarily distortion, right? But with smoothness and less distortion, you sacrifice things. You sacrifice transients and punch and all of these things. And so I wanted to give people a range. And so I wanted to say, okay, if the material can handle it, let's keep as minimal of this gain reduction as possible. It's basically using our proprietary replacement for look ahead limiting. And it's just giving the limiter more context under which it's doing gain reduction as you bring the window up. And if you give it more context and more room to do its work, it's going to naturally smooth things out more. So the window is, I would say, the best analogy, the best thing to compare it to that people, it's kind of like look ahead. The more look ahead you have, the more smoother it's going to feel. But our approach is fundamentally different. But the problem is when it's all the way down, if the material can't handle it, like piano really, really, really sucks when the window is down.
Right.
Even when it's all the way up sometimes. That's why we have different modes and it's different algorithms for that. But anyways, it's really just a way to do two things. One, if you're really, really liking where 0% sounds, but you get distortion on a particular part, automate that up and then bring it back down so that the rest of the song can sound punchy.
Gotcha.
alternatively, you can just move it up until you get something stylistically, right? Something maybe you do want the song to be a little more smooth because the dynamics are out of control and you want the limiter to help with that. So you can just turn up the window knob and it should help with making it feel a little bit more smooth, a little bit more controlled. And really what it's coming down to technically at the end of the day is just giving the limiter more room to do this look ahead replacement technology that we have, and more context under which it's operating a bunch of different, it's kind of controlling multiple things at once, and it's kind of hard to get into all of them. But that's the at least the practical purpose of the window knob, or slider rather.
And let's talk about one other window that kind of surprised me because I didn't really use it to start with. Was I'm going to put this up again,
Sure.
and let's get the plug back in. All right, so the other plug in, bye. Come back. There you go. The optimize section here, and also talk about there is a couple things here. One in the optimize itself, there's this lift and threshold, and then there's this little window that has several items. Like it looks like a meter initially, but there's other things there too. Would you
Yes.
talk about that a little?
Yeah, sure. So the optimization is, well, the idea is, okay, I now have this limiter and it's capable of doing extremely fast limiting in a very natural way. Um, I've never been a fan of upwards compression. It sounds too bubbly and pumpy to me.
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, okay, I have a way to apply gain reduction. What if I just use it in the inverse to apply gain? And so it's really just the AL-1's limiting algorithm, but in inverse. And the
Right.
trick is the limiting algorithm, since it comes first, it's informing the optimizer what it's doing and when it's about to do something. So if you notice, as the gain reduction meter goes down, as you start getting gain reduction, the optimization goes down. So it's
Right.
actually, it's kind of like, it's fitting, a ball into a socket,
Yeah.
so to speak.
You can hear it. It brings stuff up, but it doesn't do the inverse. Uh,
Right. Exactly. And it's really cool because what you could do is, well, the idea behind upwards compression that made it popular was that, okay, we don't have to do this work on these transients. We can just bring everything else up and transients can kind of do their thing. And I feel like this one, in my very humble and biased opinion, is the one that does the least pumping out of all of them. It sounds it just feels like you're taking this RMS level and you're just bringing it up. And so it's just the AL-1, but being informed about gain reduction so that it can stop optimizing and get out of the way of the limiting. Um, that's really all it is. There are internal tunings like attack and release time and this and that. And people have asked, can you expose it and this and that? But then you start getting into a spaceship for a plugin, and there's this balance of workflow and usefulness that I'm trying to always find a balance of.
I
It's
agree.
extremely difficult. But yeah,
So
I should also touch on, sorry,
yeah,
if I may,
yes,
um,
please.
the lift is different from makeup, and there's actually two different functions, and they operate on two different areas of the signal. Makeup, what's happening is on the limiter's gain reduction curve, right? You did gain reduction, and now it's releasing. Sometimes, these heuristics and these designs, they're kind of over clamping. That's why you get less loudness, less punch on a VU meter. It's
Mhm.
holding on to things longer than it probably should or that you want. And so the idea behind the makeup knob is that while the limiter is on its release curve, if there's an opportunity to add makeup gain without going over 0 dBFS on that curve, we'll add that back in, and it just kind of adds just a little. It's extremely subtle. Again, this is the 0.5%, 0.2% changes that we're talking about in the mastering world. It just adds a slight little pop to the kick, a slight little pop to the snare, a little more sustain in the body of it on the release curve. But once the limiter is done with gain reduction, we now have the opportunity to raise the overall level, right? So that's what lift does. And what it does is it says when the threshold, when the signal's RMS level falls below this value, I want you to bring it up by this much. And it's all opportunistic. It's not guaranteed to always do it. It's just going to try as best as it can.
So I guess a lot of our viewers are also mix engineers. So
Uh-huh.
would you recommend, besides in a mastering context, like mixing into something like the AL-1?
That's a good question. Some mastering engineers will say no, never, because optimization doesn't make sense and the stereo linking is going to change. Um, I have some really great mixing engineers on the team. Um, Preston Reed being one of them,
TZO.
TZO, Baines, Javon. These guys are very, very smart. And one of the things that we've kind of come up with is we love what the AL1 is doing in the mix context. Let's just bring it, let it do what it's doing, but make it do half a decibel, 1 decibel of limiting, just to give it that thing that you mixed into, but still
Right.
allowing plenty of headroom for a mastering engineer to go do his thing, because it can impart its own sonic signature on something that becomes part of the sound.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's so unique and so different. I mean, I won't say names, but there are mastering engineers who are like, I can't beat the ref, and they're talking to friends of mine. You got to tell me what limiter you use, and they go and tell them, because it imparts its own sound. It kind of falls apart without the AL1. So I don't have personal experience with this because I don't mix as much anymore. I
Hmm.
just simply don't have the time. But I philosophically, and I think just logically, that makes sense to me. Let it impart its sound, but don't let it do all the work. So I do think it can be very, very useful in that sense. Just don't send it, -7 to your mastering engineer. Give him a little bit of room, in
Please
my opinion.
don't. Yeah. Okay, you heard him, folks. Like, just touch the meters if you're
Yeah.
mixing. All right. Um, so I wanted to thank you for all the info on the AL1, and I wanted to see, do you have anything that you might want to tease for any future stuff,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
using that algorithm without giving away any like major secrets?
Well, like I said, I'm an open book, and we actually have I developed the AL1 and completely in the open. I think that's a large reason why it was very successful. Is we just got into the hands of many people as possible, and it wasn't this elite list of people that had access. It was, I want people to use it. So we have an alpha program now where, and we do gate it a little bit now. You just got to buy the AL1, just show that you're committed to being part of our community to a degree, because it just reduces the noise. So if you do buy the AL1, if you go to naturl.audio/alpha, you get access to all the plugins that I'm developing. And I have a compressor, I have 2 EQs, I have a soft clipper, I have a harmonics tool, and another thing that I just put on my Instagram the other day is I have a whole new algorithm for the AL1. It's going to be a whole new engine that you can switch between, and it's actually using all these other plugins, by the way. They are analog models. So I've been building a library for doing analog modeling. The AL1 is a complete DSP digital design. And I just got to thinking, okay, well, the AL1 does have these issues. Can I use my new, analog modeling library to create an ultra clean analog limiter? And so the next version of the AL1 1.1 is going to be coming out with a new engine option that's going to allow you to toggle between it's basically a completely new limiter, very, very similar in feel, just in my opinion, executed at an elevated level, much more elegant, much more classy, extremely hard to distort. So yeah, I got a ton of things. We have another thing on coming as well. Um, it's summing. We've been keeping quiet about this one. We're not going to release this to the alpha program just yet, because the way that we're doing it is unique. We want to get the technology established just a little bit further. But we're starting to make our way into the mixing world as well, because so far everything's been very two-bus mastering oriented. But in developing this analog stuff, and in developing my harmonics box in particular, because it's this parallel summing, but basically it breaks up the two track into 6 bands, and you have different ways that you can add harmonics to very focused bands. Very, very tastefully. You could say, I want tube, transformer, op amp, whatever. And then it kind of sums everything down. And I had to create a whole summing network to make that happen. And I was just like, wait a minute, I have a summing solution here as well. And so, yeah, threw that into something else. So there's a lot going on
Okay,
right now at
we're
Natrl.
going to keep our eyes peeled at the Naturl website, and I just want to thank Andrew. It was very kind of you to come on and tell us about the product. And yeah, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting me know about all the noises and echoes that were hitting on the Wave Lab stream here. So hopefully we'll get that fixed for next time. And thanks everybody, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.